everybody, this is IcicleFerret, and today's video is a little bit different from my usual content. And I have been, for the past 2 weeks, really diving into the conservation on the Cambion Drift. I really like this kind of content. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I find it a lot of fun. But I've noticed that there's something very odd with the Avichaea spawns. And that was that I wasn't getting any of the sporific Avichaea to spawn when I was hunting them. Now, I have found a couple just randomly out in the Cambion Drift. They will spawn as like a random encounter. But I have found exactly 6. And I know I have exactly 6 because I had just enough without spending any on tags or without spending any on favors from the sun, because I was able to buy the Mergoo, or not the Mergoo, I was just hunting those. I was able to buy the Avichaea floof and the conservation badge, which takes exactly 6. And it took me almost 2 weeks just to get those 6, just to run into them by chance out on the drift. And this was, I found this very odd, and I don't know if there's maybe there's another mechanism in the conservation that I'm missing, but I was just not able to get them to spawn when I was in my regular conservation mode, you know, find the trail start, follow the tracks, go to the call point, and call them. Now, I have actually been taking careful notes of what I found, where I found it on the Cambion Drift. And I have nearly 50. I have 49 Avichaea calls recorded. And not one of them was a sporific. They are split roughly 50-50 between when I've used a lure and when I haven't used a lure. And I have gotten only common and viscid Avichaea. Absolutely zero sporific. Now, this is very odd to me because this is not how any of the other conservation targets work. And I went to the Plains of Eidolon and I did some real quick research there using the Mergoo, which used the exact same physical model as the sporific Avichaea. And for the Mergoo, I did the exact same thing. I logged what I got and whether or not I used a lure. And then I plotted it on a chart, which I'm gonna throw up on the screen for you. The Mergoo were, you know, obviously the type of Mergoo that you get changes depending on whether or not you use a lure, but there was a pretty clear chance, I guess, of getting that all 3 types. You know, you average them out, you get roughly the same number if you use the same number of lures and the same number of no lures. You get roughly the same number of Mergoo, you know, all 3 different types. You don't get that with the Cambion Drift. With Avichaea, you only get common or viscid. So I don't know, and this is where maybe DE could look into it, maybe somebody who can get their attention, because Lord knows they're not watching my tiny channel. What is up with the sporific Avichaea? Why am I only getting common and viscid Avichaea? Are sporifics supposed to be something you only run into as random encounters? Or is there some mistake in the actual call code that is excluding them from the outcomes of conservation calls? Because I don't know what's going on here. It could just be an error. It could be something on purpose. Maybe there's another element to this that I'm missing. Like maybe you have to use 2 pheromones instead of 1, because I've only ever used 1. And this was actually something I thought about just this morning, and I wanted to get this video out. I wanted to draw attention to this issue. So I haven't had time to actually test whether or not using 2 lures, two pheromones, would get me sporifics. or whether 2 pheromones was simply redundant and had the same chances as 1 pheromone. Now that's something else I wanted to check. If that were to be the case, I would be highly disappointed, because you'd have to spend twice the standing on those lures, because those lures cost you standing, and then you'd have to spend that twice just to get a chance at getting a sporific. That doesn't seem like it's a good investment of my time or my energies or my standing. So if anybody else has any clues that I've missed, I don't know, maybe there's something to this that I don't understand, but I would be very interested in knowing if other people have had this issue as well, because as you can see by the charts, sporific Avichaea just don't respond to calls at all. Again, if you guys have any insider information on this, I would be very happy to hear this. I absolutely love building my floof collection and running conservation, but this is just beyond bad luck. You know, there's not a statistical likelihood that it's simply just bad luck that I've had. You know, I've been hunting much more than just 50 of these guys, but I only started recording once I noticed there was a pattern, or a lack of a pattern. So I've you know, probably caught close to 100 Avichaea from these call points, and 0 of them have been sporific. Every single sporific that I've had, I have found just while wandering out in the Cambion Drift. So as you can see, you know, I did a real quick trip to the Plains of Eidolon, tested it with the Mergoo, and yeah, you get all 3 types of Mergoo. You actually get the woodland least commonly between using the lure and not using the lure, but you very rarely get the splendid Mergoo when you don't use the lure, and you very rarely get the common Mergoo when you do use the lure. So it kind of averages out. So if you use an even number of lures versus no lures, you kind of have an average number of splendid, woodland, and coastal Mergoos. If you only use lures, or if you only don't use lures, you have a dearth of at least 1 variety, but if you use an even distribution of lures and no lures, you have a pretty flat distribution. But the Cambion Drift, there's really something going on, and maybe there's something like this that occurs with the other varieties on the drift as well. I haven't studied that. I've only been looking into the Avichaea because they're the ones that I wasn't able to even, you know, after the first week of hunting, I wasn't even able to buy the sporific Avichaea floof. That's how rare they were. It took a whole nother week for me to find enough of them in the wild for me to be able to buy a sporific floof. So please excuse the ferrets. Thank you everybody for your patience. You know, again, if you could just share your experiences with me in the comments, that would be much appreciated. Maybe, again, like I said, maybe I'm just doing something wrong. Maybe they introduced a new mechanic to this that I'm not aware of. But something's really fishy with this, and I'm not sure what's going on. Alright, stay frosty, my friends, and I will see you next time.